Right, I'll start off with I think we'll start off with Nighty, because you were the Cheltenham lad in the squad, really. Local lad. You've been at the club as a youngster, came back, played a big part in the trophy-winning season, and coming second in the conference with Michael. What did it mean to you to help the club get into the Football League?
Well, obviously, as a local lad, it was something that you never thought would happen to Cheltenham Town. I must admit, when I started a million years ago in the youth team, and then getting into the first team when getting crowds of probably 300, 350. When I initially got into the team, it was probably late 80s, I guess. And as you said, went away, came back several times. But to actually get that team or that club into the Football League as a local lad is just absolutely amazing. And every time you see them play now, or look at a league table and see Cheltenham, in the professional football ranks, it is just absolutely amazing. It's just something that would never happen again, I don't think.
Yeah, Michael, you obviously had a great season the year before, broke all the records that year. Do you remember what was it like? Was it all about winning the league that season? Was that the message from day one of pre-season to try and go one better and win the title?
Well, anyone that knows Cots, that was the case, no matter what league or where you were fancied not fancied at all. So I think I did an interview the other day, and I think it probably goes unnoticed a little bit to finish second and to win the trophy, and then to back it up and go one better the next year. You see so many teams now that the second season they're not quite as good. Teams have worked them out, or you're not the surprise package anymore. But obviously, adding a couple of players in the summer, but the group that we had at that time, they were driven. A lot of lads hadn't played in the Football League or had been rejected at early stages and things like that, and obviously pushed by the manager at the time. So now the expectation from within definitely was to go one better and to win the league.
Yeah, Norts, you came in the summer having had a hell of a lot of injury problems and the pain of relegation in '97 with Hereford. So was it for you, go to Cheltenham, sort of get retribution really for what happened a couple of years earlier?
Yeah, I mean, I'd spoken to Bruffy and Grace, obviously, about what was happening down at Cheltenham. I think Bruffy had just signed at the end of the season. I was finished, basically. I couldn't run or anything like that. And then the PFA paid for an operation. And then Cots got in touch and said, look, just come down, do pre-season. If you're fit enough to play, brilliant. If not, at least you'll be fitter than what you were. I can remember the first day going down there. We'd been running, and then I think we sat on the pitch afterwards, and he just discussed what had gone on the year before and how everybody would be expecting us to be at a certain level. And he went through every player, and you just knew that. I mean, I've been around football for a long time up until that point, and I'd never experienced anybody who was so confident, and how that kind of got into everybody else's minds all the way through the club, not just the players and the staff, but the directors, the fans, everybody. I think it was the most amazing pre-season team talk I've ever experienced. And he was one on his own, and I think everybody knew we'd win the league that year. I certainly did. I wouldn't have gone to a club and just played football. It had to be like, a chance to win the league, because obviously the Hereford situation was to get relegated out the league. It's the worst thing ever in football. So Cheltenham gave me an opportunity to come back and put that right, which they did.
Did he have to sell the club to you, or as soon as you met him, was it almost like, right, this is definitely the place I've got to go to?
No, I mean, Steve Cottrell was you just had to spend 10 seconds on the phone with. I'd been to the training, been around the lads. The lads were incredible, something special. They were all amazingly talented, but there was no, superstars. There was nobody, bigging it up or anything like that. There's plenty of banter going on. It was just a great place to be. You just fitted in there, and you knew everybody wanted to win. And it's probably one of the only clubs that I've been at where you can get left out, and the guy going in, you really want him to do well. Anywhere else, as a player, you turn around and say, like, oh, someone's taken my place. I've been left out. I've been dropped. You hope the team win, but you hope he doesn't do so well. It's just a natural reaction. But at Cheltenham, it was a different breed altogether, and it was a really, really special year with special people there.
Yeah, I don't know how much you'll remember, guys, but it was an opening day defeat. You know, it didn't go to plan the opening day against Welling.
Yeah.
Which would have been your debut, Noughts, and then
Yeah.
a couple of draws against Hensford and Hayes, and then the Forest Green game seemed to be the one where the tide turned. You went seven in a row, and then went straight up to the top of the league, I think, with a draw against Woking. So, do you remember there being any pressure at the start with 3 without a win, with so much expectation?
For me, no. I mean, the first game, and then I've just talked to you briefly. The 3-3 draw. I scored a fantastic own goal. And then got took off, but then got put back in the team on the in the Forest Green game. We were always gonna get it right. You know, you just couldn't have a group of people like that and continue down that path. And Cots knew what he was doing. You know, he moved it around a little bit, and we got that result, and we went on to win. It was 7 games on the trot, wasn't it? I think.
Yeah.
And I think Rushden won 7 from the start of the season, maybe. So yeah, it was just one of those seasons where you knew the people around. You can actually go on a football pitch knowing you've got teammates. Because how many teams have we played with throughout the years? But how many can you actually say they're real teams? Everybody was in it together, and that was the secret for me of the success, and obviously the continued success after that.
Yeah, and you played Rushden at home at the end of November, and more than 4,000 turned up. I don't know, Michael, if you remember anything about that game, but tight game. Bookie saved the penalty, and Knighty, you got the goal down at the Presby Road end. Do you remember that one?
Oh yeah, smashed it in from about 40 yards, I think.
I think that was me, 90, wasn't it?
No, I don't think you were in the team that day, mate. He let me have a game.
I think obviously Noughts. I struggled to remember any of it.
Really?
I think because of my age, I'd just come off a success. Well, to been promoted in my first ever football, and then the next season I went to Wembley and came second in the conference. And I think that was just the norm. Yeah. The Noughts was at the end, so you take it in a little bit more. So my career, obviously I had a few promotions with Burnley towards the end. I was 38 with the last one. I could probably tell you about everything about that one.
Yeah.
But because of the stage that I was at, I had no expectation. It was just, we just rock up and win every week. The manager shouts at you every now and again. And if I get booted up in the air because I was a young kid, there was about 5 or 6 30-year-old blokes who went, do that again, we'll have him, don't worry about that. So sort of totally different experiences in terms of the year as a whole.
That's really interesting, that.
Yeah,
really
I agree. Michael, you were probably the youngest by a fair distance, weren't you, in the squad, let alone and the team. Yeah, so I think the team, the squad sort of managed itself, so to speak. Although obviously Steve was in charge, we were all mostly experienced lads at the level, if not below. But most of us have played in the conference at some stage, so we were experienced. We knew what to do. We knew our jobs.
You had your standards.
And we knew when we were slipping, and we knew we had to give ourselves a kick at the backside. Obviously, Cox did that anyway. But I always say, I don't think luck is it, but he was lucky that he inherited the nucleus of a very good, experienced bunch of lads who were, good at the level.
Yeah, Michael,
and added to it very well.
That back four of yourself, Jamie, Banks and Bock has sort of gone down in history as, obviously the whole team's gone down in history, but that back four went through the levels, didn't it? And what do you think was, because the two, Jamie was probably the second youngest in the team. Why do you think that was such an effective back four as a unit?
Probably had a little bit of everything. You had legs. Well, all of us were a decent size. You had legs on the wide part of it. I couldn't run at the end, but I could run up and down a little bit there. And you had Bocker who'd head anything that came anywhere near your goal, and then Banco would just sweep up around everyone. So he had the intelligence, Bocker had the physicality, and then just a bit of youth. Obviously, I was a bit bigger, more aerially, probably dominant, and then Jamie had he would be the outlet a lot of the time, and then 90 down the right. So where our whip came from was fullback on the left and 90 on the right, because obviously Russ would tuck in off the left and Jamie would go around him. So whereas I would just stay put a little bit more, because I knew once 90 went forward, he was never getting back, so I never bothered.
Absolutely.
Yeah, 90 scored a cracking goal, or a vital goal against Rushden, but we've got to mention the goal against Yeovil away. I don't know if 90 or Duffer, you remember it, but there was a great team goal in a 2-2 draw at Yeovil, which was, we had a little chat about earlier, about 20-something, probably 26 passes and a cracking finish. Noughts, what do you remember about that one?
Everything, really. It definitely weren't 90.
I never got picked at Yeovil.
No, it was. I mean, it was a perfect playing surface for us, and we did knock it around. Like Duffo just said there, we had a blend. Everybody had something to give the team, and everything blended really well. We're all comfortable on the ball. In fact, I don't know about Knighty and Duffo, but what I remember about the season more than anything is up until about October, we passed the ball for fun, and it was like an incredible footballing team to play in, probably the best I've ever played in. And then after that, November onwards, we just went direct and played percentages, played really disciplined. Cost wanted it that way. I kind of questioned it in my own mind at the time, but we went on and won the league. So, the answer was there with it. But I think the Yeovil game and that goal in particular, just, the goal finished off a move that we'd done quite a few times up until that point. Some of the football we played was incredible at times.
I would agree with that.
Do you remember the goal against Doncaster, Michael? Your first goal, even though you don't remember much about that season. Do you remember the first senior goal?
No. Was it wet? Was it wet?
Yeah, it was wet, yeah.
That's what I remember. I remember sliding on my arse. That's all I remember. I couldn't tell you whether it was a header or a volley, but I remember my first goal, it was wet.
Was that away? Was that the game away?
That was at home, that one. 2-1 win against Doncaster.
When we played away, hadn't they showered the changing rooms or something? They hosed the changing rooms down or something before we got there, and it was all dripping wet.
I think Bruffy got sent off in the away game.
That's the one, yeah. Bruffy got abused, didn't he? Remember?
Yeah.
And
rightly so, I guess.
Yeah, well, yeah.
I think there was quite a nasty atmosphere that day, wasn't there, at Doncaster away?
Yeah.
The old ground.
It wasn't very pleasant.
That was
stemmed from the management. I think the two guys that were managing the Snowdens, they weren't nice guys, were they?
So we'll go forward to one of the sort of games that I'm sure you'll all remember. And Knighty, you came off the bench and played a part in it. But Michael and Dave, you started the game. Rushden away on the Easter Saturday. It's gone down as one of Cheltenham's all-time greatest. The comeback, really, the manner of the victory. What was that one like to play in? It was incredible to watch it.
I think the build-up for me was more than anything. So I remember that one because I remember pulling up when you're playing in the conference. You don't pull up to the ground and you see 700 or 800 people queuing around the block to get into it.
Yeah.
And that was the realization for me. It was like, "Oh, this is a big one." This. So I do remember. Obviously, everyone remembers the game because of what happened. But that was instantly. You sort of I've said earlier there wasn't a lot of expectation. There wasn't a lot of this. Straight away, you knew it's the first time I'd ever turned up and I'd seen that many people queuing to get in. You're warming up and the place is full. Very rarely that happens at any level. So, and then obviously the end result was sort of, I think one game encapsulated that season, it was that, never say die, everyone together, people coming off the bench and affecting it. I think I ended up taking a short corner at one point. It just sort of everything seemed to click into place. So that was my memory of it.
Yeah,
I think the manager wanted you in the middle, didn't he? And you took it.
Yeah.
I think the fact that we'd gone there, I mean, and our supporters were lining up outside the stadium, you get in there and everything was like buzzing. It was almost like the upstarts coming to the ground against the millionaires and, turning them over and, obviously with them a goal in front at the time. Wasn't that the year that, did Man United do it in the European Cup as well?
Yeah, same year, yeah.
And it was just like amazing the difference, but we'd already experienced it. And Duff, as you said, I think that was just the secret to our season. You got people who would never give up. And after those first 3 games of the season, who would have thought that we'd have gone on a run and, gone on to win the league after those first 3 games? But the belief was always there.
The belief was definitely always there. But I think after that Rushden game, we knew, didn't we? We knew that.
Well, Rushden finished 4th, didn't they?
To stop us.
Yeah.
They
finished 4th, didn't they, Rushden?
They fell away, didn't they?
Yeah.
That was it. That rubber stamp. We knew when we walked in the dressing room, we're winning the league now.
Yeah.
There's no one can touch us now. We've come through everything now. So it was literally shoulders back, crack on.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
You mentioned there Rushden Diamonds, obviously, the millionaires. They were the big spending club. Eventually, they did get in the Football League. What was it like from your perspective, not having that sort of big financial money? Greg was obviously the one who built the stadium, Neen Park. He'd built up a team of players who'd played mostly Football League football. He had a big name manager as well. What was that like? Even now, you talk about the underdog mentality, and was that into that game and just the season overall, them being a potential rival?
Yeah, I think you've encapsulated that. We were the underdogs. We were not fancied. We'd had a flash of the pan year. Everyone seemed to think the year before, and I think it was a clash of two cultures. There was a togetherness and a spirit against the ex-pros who were going for one last payday. And I think that probably tells you everything. The fact that we kicked on after that game and they down tools then because we thought, well, that's us done.
Yeah.
They were there for a payday ultimately.
Yeah, it was always a very easy game to get yourself up for, wasn't it? A Russian game.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, a friend of mine there, I won't mention his name, but he got 100 grand signing on at that time. And that's how much money was being thrown around there, and the basic wages were incredibly high for a league club. Even a championship club. But it was quite funny. So I had a conversation with him at the end of the game, and that because I played for Cheltenham in that year, and all I was on was expenses. I wasn't on a contract or anything. I said to Cots beforehand, let's just let's see how it goes, and I stayed on expenses. So that kind of was a situation for me. But if you look at all the lads as well, the money was aside. Neil Grayson, great player as he is and whatever he's done, he just plays on his heart. His heart plays for him, and that's the secret we had that year. And you could, if I say about myself, 19 years as a player, I played in 3 teams. One was the reserves, one was Notts County, and the other one was Cheltenham. But Cheltenham was by far the greatest team that I'd ever played for, and that's only because it wasn't just the 11 or the 14; it was all the way through the club, And I'm sure, if any manager has got that kind of togetherness, they're gonna have a good season, a successful one.
No, you say only on expenses that year, but you did 1,000 miles a week.
It weren't 40 pence a mile, Nigel, I tell you. I think about a penny a mile.
Yeah, Nicey, I mean, you would have always been probably first choice winger, but I think Steve didn't actually use wingers the whole of that season, did he? And I think that probably meant at times you had to be patient, but you obviously came on in the big one, the Yeovil game. I think it's only right to devote a bit of time to that one. Because Michael, you said the Russian game was the one you knew you'd won it. But how good did it feel to get the job done at home with 3 games to spare?
Well, to be honest, yeah, we had 3 games to spare, but I think that was the night where we all turned up and thought, this is it. There was a fantastic crowd, officially about 6,500, but there was a lot more than that. I mean, it was sat sort of 4 deep in front of the dugout. So they were throwing them in. Fantastic atmosphere. Yeovil, and to be fair, Yeovil played really well that night. We didn't play poorly, but Yeovil played exceptionally well, I thought. And to get the job done on that night with that atmosphere, it just seemed to be written that that's what was going to happen. And the other 2 games was just after that were, well, inconsequential, to be quite honest. We didn't play particularly well after that, so I think we probably still hung over for most of them. But yeah, that night was brilliant, and to score the goal in the 97th minute or something, there's no way back for them, was just, you couldn't have written the script, to be quite honest. I don't think.
Remember though, United, that was on the Thursday, wasn't it? It was the 3rd game we'd had that week. I think we had the semi-final on the Saturday. We got beat, and then we had Forest Green on the Tuesday, and then it was Yeovil on the Thursday, wasn't it? And then did we play Hayes away on the Saturday, something like that? That's
right. Yeah.
I think that's the one where everybody was hammered.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember Hayes. Did we get beat?
Yeah, I was sitting in the stand with a beef burger.
But I remember they weren't particularly accommodating. I do remember wallpapering the changing room afterwards with all the echo, all the centre spreads of all the echo. We literally wallpapered it, all 4 walls. It was our own little 2 fingers back to them. But going back to the Yeovil game, like I said, I know Knight, you said, if we'd have been promoted with a draw at Hayes, it'd have been, I don't think people would have talked about it in the same way. Yeah. But the fact that people were literally climbing the floodlight pylons, they were climbing in trees. It was like the old days from when I was growing up in the FA Cup. And do it under the lights in the style that we did it to go. Was it 1-0 down? We went quite early, and it was a film story, really. It's something it was a Rocky type sort of scenario, and yeah, it was unbelievable day, unbelievable game, and very good night as well.
and a dream realised, Michael, for you, wasn't it? Because Knighty and Norts have been around a bit, been in the pro game, and I think you were a full-time trainee as such, weren't you? But to get into the league and become a full-time pro at 21, I think, how much did that mean to you at the time?
Yeah, well, I had to wait. You know, I'd had a few kicks along the way. Well, when Cots came in, obviously famously, I got sent back from Cirencester. So the drive was always there within me. I just did things later than what most other people did, even going towards the end of my career. It took me 31 to get into the Premier League. So, but it's the drive was always there, and it was the next rung. Obviously, I was lucky. I was young. I'd gone from Carterton to Cirencester to promote into the Dr. Martin's Prem, into the conference, and I just managed to keep doing it with Cheltenham. So I was unbelievably lucky to walk into a team or a club that was just about to go on to what it did, because I could have quite easily been playing non-league football for the rest of my life. So to have that opportunity and to be able to do it ourselves as well, not relying on someone buying you or taking you, it was like, no, I'm becoming a pro now, no matter what.
And it was an easy decision for you, but Knighty and Norts, you two both had slightly different, but both very difficult decisions to make then, didn't you?
Well, it wasn't a difficult decision for me, to be quite honest, because I was never going to go back in the Football League because of the job situation. But I did, I still went down the ground, still went to training ground now and again to see the lads. But the atmosphere, I think the atmosphere had changed. It was great that they were in the Football League, don't get me wrong. But the atmosphere within the group was different to when it was non-league. If that makes sense, because now it was their job. Whereas at non-league, it was like a bunch of lads thrown together. We train twice a week. We'll have a beer twice a week. We'll have a beer on a Saturday. When they went pro, that sort of finished pretty much straight away, didn't it? Not saying it's all about drinking and stuff, but a lot of what we did together as a group the year before got us through situations in games because we had that camaraderie and that bond. And I don't think you get that. Well, not just Cheltenham. I think a lot of pro clubs don't get that. You're very, very lucky if you do.
So you knew when the goal went in, you set the goal up for Michael. That was it. You knew that would be the end of your Cheltenham career then, Knighty. I knew I'd probably be getting drunk that night. I didn't really think about what was going to happen the year after, but sort of dawned on me probably the next day that we're going to win the league. We've won the league. They get promoted, and yeah, that would probably be that would be it. Not a bad way to go out.
No, fantastic, absolutely fantastic.
And Norts, you had an offer, so Knighty knew deep down what was going to happen, but your situation was very much up in the air for a few weeks, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Steve offered me assistant manager, assistant coach with Mike Davis and whatever, and it was kind of it was a difficult decision in one way because I think it would have been a great opportunity for me, but I just wanted to play. I've missed a lot of games with injury and throughout my career, and I've got such a buzz playing that season. I thought I still had a lot to offer, and I wanted to carry on playing. I think if I'd have been offered the opportunity to play and coach, that would have been different. But that wasn't possible because I took my medical insurance when I retired from pro football. It was difficult, but I wanted to play football. It's just playing football for me, and the coaching side brilliant, but you can't beat walking on a pitch and playing. I still thought I had a few years left. Probably had about 18 months left. So, but it was all good fun anyway. And like I say, Yeovil was a good club. A very traditional club, and I love the way they were run. They had the blazers, the flannels, the polo shirts, the ground, the fans, and it was probably the next best thing to going in the league because of the setup there. But in the end, the travelling got too much for me, and I ended up going back to Forest Green.
Michael, the goal, the 97th goal. I know you'd be sick to death of being asked about this, but there is a bit of a theory that you both headed it. What was Knighty? Who do you think scored it?
Michael. To be honest, my dad could have scored. That was such a great cross. But no, you've only got to look. The way the ball goes in, it's come off Michael. So, yeah, I've got no doubt whatsoever.
I've had it for years. I did quite a few other things in my career, but that's the only thing that everyone only ever asks me about.
Hey, Duff, it's the only one that matters, mate.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I know I headed the ball, and I've had this not even an argument with Jamie because it went on, and I said, well, if I hadn't headed the ball, there's no way to run around like a lunatic like that because I didn't score many. So it's just instant. You're not even thinking. And I'm a big believer in players' reactions tell you everything, whether it's a tackle or a red card, a handball or anything. So it was a good ball put in. If Jamie's headed at the same time as me, I don't know. But I know for a fact I headed the ball. My reaction tells you I headed the ball. Ultimately, it's not about me or Jamie. It was a goal that's in the 97th minute that got the team promoted. So that was the most important thing. The thing that went on afterwards almost annoyed me a little bit in the end, because it's like, well, people talk about one thing. It's 42 games here and a couple of years of real success, and people are picking at it. And like you said, 20 odd years later, they're still talking about it. It's talking about the togetherness of the group and what we achieved. And the town came with us as well. So that was the year before we went to Wembley and took 20,000 people, which is unheard of. Like, I don't think if we'd have got in the playoffs this year, we don't know what's going to happen. I'm not sure we'd take 20,000 people in now. And then to carry that on, and it was because it'd been a bit of a, the club had been sleeping for a few years really. So everyone bought into it, the supporters, the players. Knighty's talking about story. I did something the other day, and it was an article about some of the stories that went on. I remember coming back from Dover and the whole bus was naked at one point because directors and all, because Bob Bloomer was doing his Singing in the Rain rendition. Those sorts of things. Players drinking in the bar after a game with supporters. Like you say, you go into the Football League and it sort of gets filtered out because it isn't professional and it is your job. You do have to do it properly because it's expected of you. So all those sorts of things, it was accumulation of all that. So did I head the ball? Yes. That's what I think.
Never in any doubt, but that night went down in history in the celebrations. You mentioned the town coming with Cheltenham, and what are your memories of the open top bus tour? Because you were becoming quite a regular on it, weren't you? With especially Knighty and Michael, because you'd had one the year before, which was pretty special. But did this one seem more of a sort of end of an era, start of a new era?
Yeah, I think so for me. I think there was less people at this one than there was at the Wembley one.
Yeah.
The Wembley one, like you said, it was packed. I don't know how many people were out, 50, 60,000 I think there was. There was a lot of people that came out for the second one, but it was hard to... And it was a couple of week break since that night. I think if you'd have done it the next day, it'd have been the same. Because we did it so early, it was the euphoria. It almost became the norm. We kept winning. So, the euphoria had sort of just come away a little bit. So that's the main difference. There was still lots of people turning out, and it was still a good day and an unbelievable thing to have another open top bus. You never get bored of them, but it was definitely a slightly flatter atmosphere than what there was after Wembley.
Yeah, I think the year before you had the wow factor, didn't you? So I can remember, I think we met at the hotel, and Clive Walker said to me after the trophy game, "How many people do you think will be out in town?" I said, "There won't be hardly anybody out. I can't imagine it because Cheltenham's just not a football in town." We went round the first corner, and wow, it was amazing. But like Michael said, probably less the second year round because the novelty might have worn off a little bit, and the game had been a week or so previous, but. It's still a fantastic thing to do. Very enjoyable.
You speak about how at the back end of the season, obviously, like particularly the Yeovil game, there was thousands in the stadium. People watching the match from trees and stuff. From the start of the season, did you see that gradual sort of progress in terms of the whole elevation of the crowd and the numbers and the amount of interest in the whole town getting behind the club, or because the club had won the trophy final the year before, actually was that there already?
I think it was there already, but it did grow throughout the season as well. There was obviously a lot more people buying season tickets and things after the trophy final, a lot more curiosity as, we've got a decent football club, we might go down and watch them a few more times. And then after the first 3 games, as you said, when we started poorly, but then won 7 on the trot, it did snowball without a shadow of a doubt. And even the away support, we were getting, a lot more people going away from home as well.
And by the end, did it feel like, this Cheltenham team that have been playing Southern League football just a couple of years, did it suddenly feel like it could be a Football League club 2 or 3 months later when the season would get going in August?
I think for me, the club was already professional. It wasn't in status, obviously, so they're playing in a conference, but the way when I got there, the way it was run, the way the lads were, everybody seemed to have that professional winning attitude. So for me, the transition through the season and obviously going on to the first year in the league would have been quite smooth, really. I mean, what I noticed with the crowd, I think the expectation levels, probably February onwards, had gone up. There were definitely more individual moaning in the crowd. But the support all the way through the season was brilliant. But the expectations were higher. There were people coming into the game to watch the game that hadn't been there all season. But saying that, it grew and grew, and by the end of it, the supporters got what they deserved as well, and it was a great night, a great season, and then league football, obviously.
Keith, you mentioned Clive Walker there. I think he was probably twice as old as Michael at the time, but still contributed certainly a lot in the trophy season, and definitely was sort of on fire at the start of that title-winning season. What was he like to have around? Obviously coming to the end, but had such a great career, and 40 years old, still pretty fit, wasn't he?
He was fantastic. I can remember this. I think his first game was at Slough away, and during the build-up to the game, there was all the talk about Clive Walker signing and what's he going to be like? Is he going to be a big-time Charlie? He's been there, seen it, done it. Why is he playing non-league football still at his age and all that sort of thing? Must be desperate for money, blah, blah, blah. And I think Bob Bloom has stuck a photo on his peg at Slough, a picture of Annie Walker off Coronation Street. And Walks came straight in and started laughing and said, of course, I've never seen that before, have I? He screwed it up, threw it in the bin. And within 10 minutes, he was just one of the lads. He's like he'd always been there. Fantastic professional, still a very good player. He gave us something that we probably didn't have. He gave us that wow factor, I guess. Like Nort said earlier, we didn't have any big-time Charlies, but he was a big name. But he just took it all in his stride. And for me, he was fantastic because he was one of the guys I could go to if I was struggling with this, that, or the other, and have a private conversation with. And he'd say, "Well, try this, keep your head up, da da da," and it wouldn't go any further. He was good as gold, and he was just generally one of the lads. I thought he was brilliant.
I think that was the main part of the recruitment that summer. You look at people like Norts and Walks and people that have been there and done it. So there was a real togetherness. And we're talking about professionalism, but people like Norts and Walks, they drove the professional aspect of it then, and the standards went up again because obviously most of us had played non-league or young, and they're like, well, they've been there and done it. So if it's good enough for them, it's good enough for us. Again, so it sort of tightened the group again even more.
Yeah. And you hear things all the time from managers, and you probably get it now, Michael, doing it. You've got to sign the right characters to fit into your changing room. I always say when people ask me what it was like, it's not very often in your career that you get on with every single person in your changing room.
Yeah.
For me, it happened twice for me. Once was at Trowbridge a million years ago, but those 2 years, or 3 years at Cheltenham, I got on with everybody. They might not have got on with me, obviously, but I got on with everybody. There wasn't anybody that walked in and you went, "Oh God, easy." They were all your mates.
Mm. What was it like bringing in obviously Norts, you one of the Hereford four, along with Grayson, Bruffy and Richard Walker, and I think you'd all captain them at some point. Certainly, 3 of you had captain Hereford.
Yeah.
So what was it like coming in? I think you're all quite close, weren't you, the 4 of you? And it was almost like Cheltenham took the core of that team, combined it with the core of what was already a good team, and seemed to take it up to another level.
I think I've been at Northampton with Neil Grayson, obviously, and Richard Walker and Bruffy. I've been at Hereford and at Notts County, so we knew each other really well. We had some good players at Hereford, but what we didn't have this togetherness. We didn't have. Everybody seemed to have their own agenda, and I think when that happens a lot in football, even though it's a team game, you'll have individuals who are just playing for themselves. At Cheltenham, it wasn't like that. You got Duffo coming in at a very young age, fitting into it and playing brilliantly all season. You got the older players who are like having a new lease of life. But you've been led by a manager who led the club, not just, I say, the directors, the manager, the players, the fan staff. Everybody at the club was all in it together. And that's the secret of winning. That's what I'm saying about a team. At Hereford, we didn't have that. There some good players, some very good players, but you've got to have something that sticks everybody together, and that's what was so good at Cheltenham. We all came in, and we didn't have to. I think if you're good pros and you go into that situation, it's quite easy to fit in. Whereas you could have good players coming into Hereford, which they were at times, but we didn't have that already there, that ingredients. You know, the previous year you'd come second, you know, won the trophy. All of that success was already growing. So it was easy for people to come in and you know, add to it, if you like. But you don't get that very often. You get managers who want to bring players in, you know, experienced players, but there's still a lot to do. We were just like the final pieces of the jigsaw. Everything else was already there.
Yeah, there was a real honesty in the group as well. So it's all right, we're talking about banter and getting on together and all things like that, but there was a respect that if someone told someone in no uncertain ways you weren't doing it, you didn't snap back. People thought, well, you might have a point there. You know, Steve was the same. Steve was the world's worst for caning people, getting in people's faces, but no one ever came back at him because they knew it was only for your best interest or the team's best interest, and there was a mutual respect. So normally, the first thing is football. When someone has a go at you, you instantly snap back.
Yeah.
People didn't have that. It was no, he might have a point there. And again, going back to that's the holy grail in football. To people, to de-ego people, no matter what level, everyone's got an ego, and that's what it was. That's what we had. Like you talk about Clive Walker, who's played for Chelsea. I think he just played in about 400 trophy finals leading into that season. Yeah. And he was just the same old bloke. Do you know what I mean? You go for a drink with him when we went to Marbella or Portugal, or whatever it was, and some of the stories that he told were brilliant. He had everyone on a piece of string, but there was no big time Charlie. But he liked telling the stories because he was name dropping a little bit. But he had everyone hanging on every word, and then he just go, right, to come and have a drink and we'll crack on. It was that sort of everything, tied everything together.
Yeah, I'd just like to ask a little bit more about Cottrell. I mean, Norts, you said he probably gave one of the best team talks pre-season that you'd ever heard. Knighty, you might remember him as a young lad coming through at Cheltenham a few years earlier. What was it like? Because he brought you back, didn't he? I think one of his first signings was to get you back on loan.
Yeah. I'd known Steve probably since I was about 15, playing in the reserves at Cheltenham. He was the same driven, confident character then that he still is now, I suppose, that he was when he was the manager. And you knew that something special was going to happen with him, whether it be playing football or coaching or managing, just by being with him, because he was that sort of person. He didn't take knockbacks. He just got up and carried on and wanted to prove people wrong all the time. So I think when he did his knee in playing football, his next thing was to be, you know, a coach or a manager. In fact, when I signed back from Cheltenham, he hadn't spoken to me for about 10 years because my Sunday morning team beat his Sunday morning team in the semi-final. And he was sulking still. But yeah, to be fair, he rang me when I was at Hales Owen and said, I've taken over, do you fancy coming back to play at Cheltenham? And it was a no-brainer really, because I think they had Mark Bellingham playing at the time and he wanted to go back and play in the Midlands. It just made logistical sense. So I thought, yeah, go and give it a go. Last throw of the dice, so to speak. So I was 28, 29. And I knew I'd nearly signed the year before, actually, from Gloucester, but things didn't work out for various reasons. But when I went back, there were a few lads within the squad that I knew Steve wanted to get rid of because he thought they were bad apples within the squad, which he did. Got rid of them in the summer, I think, after we got promoted, and replaced them with his type of character and his type of player.
Yeah, Michael, like you said earlier, one of the first things he did was recall you from the loan spell at Cirencester. And, you know, Chris Robinson had given you your debut and things like that. And I think it was him who was actually manager when you signed, wasn't it? But Steve put his faith in you, really, and you certainly repaid it. But what do you remember? Can you remember anything about those early exchanges with Steve and how did he give you belief?
I think he saw that he'll talk about himself. We used to play head tennis a lot in the car park. And at the start, he beat me quite a lot, but he saw a determination that I used to hate losing. And I think he saw a bit of himself in me. I'd go away and I'd work and I'd work and I'd work and I'd work until I started winning the odd game, and then I started winning a few more. And I think that's what he saw. I don't think he saw any particular ability in me. I think he just saw a mentality and a drive of probably like Knighty saying what he had. I've done what he's 15 years old, 15 years before. And he would work, and he knew what made me tick, as in I would need a rocket. Very rarely I got a pat on the back because he thought that I would go into easy Ozy mode. But times were different then. That focused me, because it was like, no, I'll prove you wrong. I can do it. So I think I've got a lot to owe Steve. Do you know what I mean? Not only do in those early days like that, but he gave him a chance at Burnley as well. So, you know, there've been a few clubs watching me for quite a few years in the Football League, and I got to 26, and the chances are you think you've missed the boat. He ends up taking a punt, takes me to Burnley. I end up playing 400 games for him. But that wouldn't have happened. Well, it might not have happened because a lot of people have been watching for a long time. So I owe like an unbelievable amount to Steve for what he did, and that's what I just said a minute ago. I was lucky to walk in the building when I did, because no one knew what was happening. And then if you go back to the fairy tale of how it was all coming together, you got a local bloke running the team while it's all going on as well. So that's probably why supporters bought in again. So it was the perfect storm, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, Norts, there was a game at Hereford, a really big game. I think it was over the Easter period, where you went there. It was quite a hostile crowd. Actually, it was in March. I just had a look, and one of the big results going there. But you didn't get the warmest of welcomes back there, did you?
No. Again, it's like left a bit of a sour taste, really. I mean, like when I left the club, I left because they weren't giving me a contract, and they wouldn't pay for an operation when I desperately needed one. But I didn't say that because Graham Turner was under pressure. And then when I came back, I did speak to Graham Turner and said, look, I'm coming back in. I'm playing part-time. And he just wasn't interested anyway. Not that I would have gone back there, but he didn't have any interest in it. And when I came back, I'd done a lot of supporters forums where we got all the supporters together after we got relegated to try and keep everybody together, as well as the players. So there was a lot of like closeness there with the supporters trying to do the right thing for them. And then they just didn't know the full story. I can always remember, though, it's funny because like as bad as the supporters were, and how violent they were, and the spit and the coins and everything. We took the corners and we scored from it. I had like 5 players around me, I think, after we scored the corner. Instead of like going on to whoever scored, I had 4 or 5 players coming to protect me from the lads who were coming on the pitch. And then on the coach afterwards, Steve just said, like, we've got a problem with a lad on the outside who wants to speak to you. And he says, you're not going out. If he wants to come on, we've got all these players like to look after you. And he said, we're going back home now. We're family. This is your family. And that's what those little things, mean an awful lot. I felt under a lot of pressure that day. Even though there was 4 of us, I think, who were playing, or 3 of us who were playing on the day, I got the brunt of it. But I was looked after by the players, on the pitch. My family were looked after in the stands with our supporters, like protecting them from Hereford people. Supporters were brilliant, and the lads and the manager and the board were great to me at the coach afterwards. So again, it's like we had a family there that year. It was the closest I've been to a football family, and I'm sure that the lads would say the same. There was a special kind of togetherness there, and that got me through. That was a horrible experience, but at the end of the day, we won. We got 3 points. We were top of the league, I believe, at that time. And so it ended up being a great day. And it's just a shame that supporters have to resort to that kind of thing. I mean, it was non-league football, and resorting to stuff like that. It was dreadful.
Those 5 or 6 lads when they ran it.
Yeah, 5,000 or 6,000.
No, the 5 or 6 lads that came over to you rather than the goal scorer, they weren't coming to you. They were coming to get the pound coins.
Yeah,
I bet one of them was Dale.
It was funny, like, because obviously when we put the ball in the back, I couldn't believe it. It took about 5 minutes to take the corner, and it went in. I think it was Jamie. Was it Jamie who scored?
Jamie scored, yeah.
Jamie scored and put
He
it in the back,
definitely
and just turned. And then it was all hell let loose.
I remember that guy coming. I remember that guy coming on the bus, actually.
Yeah.
He came on and he said, why did you leave, Norts? Why did you leave us? So you give him this long 10-minute statement of why you left.
You're trying to say I talk too much.
And then he went, yeah, but why did you leave? And I thought, no, get off. Get off, you idiot.
I think I had Booker flanking me, so I was all right.
Yeah.
Do you remember after you'd got the trophy against Welling, you had a county cup game away at Gloucester, and so that was a bit of a goodbye for a lot of the team, really. And I think Yatesy scored, Clive Walker might have scored in what was his last game, and then everyone went their separate ways. And obviously it was Cheltenham Town had a football league team. I think that took a while to sink in for a lot of people.
it's hard not being involved with it. It's really difficult, but again, I think the way I looked at it, I tried to look at it in a positive way, that I just had the greatest year of my career, and I don't think it would have got any better than that. So for me to say, buy at that time was still a good thing, because, like I said, the club had given me everything I wanted, especially after getting relegated with Hereford. Knew from the first time I walked into the training at Cheltenham we're going to win the league, and I walked away as a winner, and that's what I wanted to do. And it's a massive thank you to everybody at the club. And I still say that now. People get pretty bored with it, and I'm not saying it for any other reason. That it really meant the world to me. So I was lucky to be in that place. Like Duff just said, he walked into a place, at his stage of his career, and I walked in at my stage of the career, which finished my career off in the best possible way.
My memory of that summer was the ground going to be ready? I started getting nervous that we wouldn't be allowed into the Football League, because I remember the race against time, because the infrastructure just wasn't there. I remember reading in the paper, and because obviously I was still living locally, and I just remember the yellow barriers that had to go up through the terracing and certain things, and that there was almost like a little bit of a panic of, this might get taken away from me, because it was a real race against time. And that's when, again, you talk about people that deserve credit. The board deserve credit. People, because people like Colin were just as driven as Cott. So those two worked. I know there's lots of other board members, people like Arthur and Paddy and Paul Robertson, people like that. But yeah, it was that was one of my overriding memory of that summer was, are we actually going to be allowed in the Football League? Because obviously during that time, there were a lot of teams being not allowed in.
Yeah, Knighty, you went to Worcester with Graham, I think, then, didn't you, at that point?
Yes, I did. To be honest, everywhere I went after that, apart from the little spell I had probably at Gloucester with when I helped Chris Burns, who was a good friend of mine, was never as enjoyable again as that little spell at Cheltenham, without a shadow of a doubt. And I go on about the camaraderie and the friendship, and the lads I played with then, I can still pick the phone up to, or whenever I see them. It is like you're meeting your long lost mate, and it's always great to catch up. Always great to catch up. My missus said to me, "What are you doing today?" And I said, "I'm doing this with you guys." She said, "Oh, not again. You're not talking about that again." But I never get tired of talking about it, and I'm sure Norts doesn't. Duff might know. I don't know, but I don't. It's just something to be extremely, extremely proud of, because there aren't many people that get to do it.
Definitely. And Michael, you also. Sorry, Norts, you carry on.
I think the biggest thing is there is a lot of pride in what we achieve, but you go through your football career, and like I said to you, I played so many different clubs, but I only played in 3 teams. One was, like I say, Villa Reserves, Notts County, but I was just a bit part. But then, right at the end of my career, you play with a group, like I say, playing with a group of people who've got the same mentality, the same belief, and it's led from the top, and it goes all the way. Everybody bought into it. You don't get that often. If you get that once in your career, you've got to be happy. And that's what I think we had more than anything. So you look at everything else I've achieved or done in my career. That is my pinnacle, without doubt. Because for me, you don't get the chance to play with a group of people, and like I say, winners. If I believe in it and I want people around me to believe in the same, you're disappointed a lot in your career in the teams you play for. How many teams you've played for, that haven't shared that haven't got that shared belief? But we had it in droves, and it proved it. If we'd have got beat in that Rushden game, if it worked the other way around, we would have still gone on to win the league. And Rushden went the other way. They just melt away. We would have gone on we would have turned it round. That was the difference in what was in the dressing room and in the club.
Yeah, Michael, you went on, obviously the ground you mentioned, they got the ground done, and it just kept improving, didn't it? As the team improved, new stand built here, new stand built there, another promotion. You went on to play in the Championship and then the Premier League. But for the club, that season was probably the turning point, wasn't it? Just to get into the full-time game.
To see where they are now, 21 years now, and I know they came out of the league for a year, but to have, when we got promoted, if anyone thought that little old Cheltenham would be a pretty much established Football League team, I know it's a scrap and it's been a bit squeaky along the way because we are a small team, but it all goes back to that one team. And what Norts is saying there is, I've been lucky. I had a few promotions at Burnley, and I spoke to Joey the other day, Joey Barton. Now he got promoted in my last one when I retired at Burnley, and he went to Rangers. And now Joey's had a good career, and he hated it at Rangers instantly because it was full of egos. He hated it at QPR. Money was astronomical, but he walked into an environment that was him, and it clicked. And you search for it your whole career, and it's very rarely it comes along. And someone at that level who's earned millions and millions and millions playing football, but it's not about money. It's about that togetherness, and you can't buy it. Hence the Rushden team. Yeah,
and you can't recreate it very often either. Because certainly now in non-league football, because I don't think those characters that were about when we played at that time are about so much now, because most of the lads that play non-league football now have come out of academies and stuff and not made it at football league clubs, and they're a different breed.
The sing songs and the Thursday night running sessions around the town.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Couldn't get on the pitch, could we?
No, and that's after we won 3-0 on the Saturday.
I know. But every player bought into it, though, didn't they? There was no complaining. Everybody just went out there and done it. Well, you had to, otherwise you wouldn't play Saturday.
Absolutely.
But you know, it was like all done in the right way, and whatever the methods were, it worked. And I say that's where the togetherness comes in. And it was you know, you could have a laugh, but everybody knew where the line was, cross the line, and then you know you play your football and you go out there to win.
I think I know you're doing one of these with the lads that got promoted 4 years ago. And it's just as important, because if they hadn't got promoted that year, we probably wouldn't ever come back.
No.
So that group was just important. They'd probably tell the same stories. It was that group. Because you do, when you walk into a dressing room, I still bump into Knighty quite often. Norts came down to the game. And when you get those types of dressing rooms, if you put all those players in one room in 15 years' time and they've not once spoke in between, you click back into the old days.
Yeah.
Because with teams that aren't as together and they're a little bit more splintered, they'll just go off in 3s and 4s. Whereas if we put that team from 21 years ago together in a room next week, you'd think you'd gone back 20 odd years, because it'd just be everyone bouncing off each other, and that doesn't always happen. And you're lucky to walk into it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Just like to ask Norts and Knighty. I mean, Yatesy was obviously manager for quite a long time and did a good job, one of your old teammates, but did you take a particular interest when Michael got the job a couple of years ago and took over, and you know, having seen him come through and establish himself in the first team in those early years?
You going first, Knighty?
I can do, yeah. I mean, I think I went down on the day you were appointed or the day after to the training ground.
Right, yeah.
The catch up. I hadn't seen him for ages and ages. I thought it was a fantastic appointment. For a young, enthusiastic, want to get on manager, coach, whatever, it's a great club, because I'd imagine they leave you pretty much to your own devices, and you can do what you want to do within certain, you know, parameters. So I think it's a great, hopefully a stepping stone for him. I mean, what he's done this year, I've been to, I don't know, probably a dozen games, and you know, whether they win, lose or draw, mostly they win. You're entertained because they're playing football the right way, or perceived to be what is the right way now. Get it down and play. Whereas before, when you know, the previous manager had the job, I'd go to games that they would win, and I'd come away thinking, "Cool, that was not very entertaining." You know, it was just sort of smash bang wallop. No great footballing awareness about it. But at least I know when I go and watch Cheltenham, I think, you know, I'm going to be entertained because they're going to try and play the right way, and that obviously comes from the manager. I think so far so good, done a fantastic job. It's just a shame that what's happened with everybody with this lockdown, it's happened now, because you know, I think you're probably on the cusp of achieving something that, you know, would have been on a par with what we did 21 years ago. It's definitely in with a show.
I think for me, I think, you know, I obviously agree with everything you've said there, Knighty. But I think the biggest thing, and this is what I agree, you know, or what I believe in football anyway, if you've got a passion and a love for what you're doing and what you're doing it for, as well as all the ability, the knowledge and everything else, you've got a head start on everybody else. And I just think Duffo's got it's a perfect appointment, you know, at Cheltenham. And I hope that, you know, you get the opportunity to stay there 2 or 3 years and just prove exactly how far you can go with it. Because I know Cott's probably thought he could, you know, he's took it as far as he could, but I don't know. I'm just kind of like living fantasy world sometimes. I like to dream a little bit, and it would be really nice, you know, to do what many people think is the impossible. Just take it to the next level of dreaming. How far can you take this club? And I think, Duffo, you're the man to do it, mate. I think you've got a great team around, all Cheltenham people who've got experience or knowledge of the love of the place, know the supporters inside out. So what I would say is, like, if you get the opportunity, stay as long as you can and try and just take this club to the highest place it's ever been.
Hopefully, if they don't sign it first.
You know, listen, I've watched the team play. You've got a great team around. You've got that belief and everything. But, you know, it's like, you know, everybody says you can only do so much in football, you know, but there's always someone to come out of that. And it'd be really great if you're the one to do it for Cheltenham. Where the club's been and where it is amazing. But I still think there's another story there somewhere.
Yeah, I agree.
So good luck, Paul.
Yeah, definitely.
That's brilliant. That's quite a nice way to end it, guys. That's absolutely brilliant. Really enjoyed that.
Yeah, really enjoyed it too. Well done. Great to see you guys as well.
And you, mate. Stay in touch, yeah?
I'll see you in the mirror again soon.
Yeah.
Hey, you're getting older.
I feel older, mate.
See you later, chat.
See you guys.
Thank you very much for that.
No worries.
Cheers.
Cheers, nice.
Cheers.
Yeah, see you, mate.